Yo, welcome back to the MMA Short Show. As always, your boy Steven Moustaris. And guys, let's be honest with ourselves here, man. We should have known from the jump that UFC 300 was doomed from the start. As soon as somebody's out there like Dana White, guaranteeing one of the greatest cards we'll ever see, once in a lifetime card from start to finish, the greatest card we'll see. No, as soon as that's promised, we should have known from there that it wasn't going to be up to par that we were thinking. Think about it. Us fellas out here, you've hit your girl up how many times now? And oh, baby, when you get home, it's about to go down. You're going to have the greatest night ever. And then you bust in 10 seconds and she's sitting there looking at you snoring and she's pissed off at you. Or it's the same as if like your best friend hit you up and like, oh, dude, you got to go see this movie. It's the greatest movie of all time. And you go watch it and you go, oh, yeah, it was good. But, I went in there expecting the greatest ever. And I just think that's exactly what happened with UFC 300. It had so much hype around it because it's this big number, it's this big the big 300, it's just from the start we should have known. And if we really are being honest with ourselves, when it comes to the UFC, one of the greatest things about MMA in general, about the entire sport that makes it so much better than boxing, in my opinion, is prize boxing, prize fighting boxing back in the day with Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, all the guys, you can name them for days and days and days and days. It was dope back then, but they was always hyped around one fight. And with MMA, one of the most impressive things is how deep we can make these cards, especially with the UFC. They have deep cards. Guys, we could go back and watch the last 70 to 150 cards, and they are stacked from top to bottom if we truly love watching the sport. And that's just the thing, man. If we really look at it, though, when it comes to how they're going to sell pay-per-views, like if their whole goal was the reason it was going to be so big was to sell so many pay-per-views, I mean, if we go back and look at the top 10 selling UFC pay-per-views, 8 out of the 10 are Conor McGregor fights. And the only other two that are in there is UFC 100 with Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir, which Brock Lesnar was that guy. And then it was Masvidal versus Usman at UFC 251 because Masvidal was, some huge man at the time going on a crazy run and just had all the hype. So it's really, if you guys go back and look, like 6 out of 10 of those were deep cards, but really it was all around one fight. Clearly, Conor McGregor, everybody's going to watch Conor fight, Brock Lesnar fight, and watch Masvidal fight when he was in his prime there. And that's just the thing with UFC 300. It's just lacking that one big fight. And, I don't even think there was a fight out there, to be fair for them, unless they were going to try the Conor McGregor fight, which seemed like it could have been there. But I don't know. I think they're trying to show that they can sell without Conor, and you save Conor for the rest of the year if you want a bigger thing to end the year. Like you could always say, oh, look what we did in April with UFC 300, and then look what we did with Conor in summertime or the end of the year. Like I can kind of see that. But this is the question, man. What would it truly take to become the greatest card in the UFC history? Like what would it truly, truly take? And if we really look at it, man, what would be some options? I always like the idea of having every title fight in one night. It'd be 11 title fights if we add the girls, 115, 125, 135, and then you start from 125 to heavyweight in a night, and you got 11 UFC title fights right then and there. But the problem with that is not only do you have to worry about getting the title, getting the champions there healthy, and hopefully they have a big enough matchup and a big enough opponent that hopefully they didn't run through the division. But like with right now, would they be willing to sacrifice an entire year, 7 to, maybe 15 months of just absolute lackluster cards because they don't want to have a champion on there and they have to keep them healthy for this big, big card that they're working towards? Like, I don't even know if that would sell. And I mean, if, after I just did a video talking about, women's MMA and how I just don't think the UFC cares about 135 and 145 anymore. I was blown away with the comments talking about how much they don't care about women's MMA in general. So, like, if we're talking about that, like, you could have those women's fight in the beginning, early prelims, technically. And I know nobody might not watch them. I know a lot of us would, but start that at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. You could easily do that. And then, have the last prelim card would be the 145 belt. Like, that could be sick. And then 155 through heavyweight for the main card. That could be absolutely sick, but the UFC is not going to give a chance to these guys like one championship and the PFL who are making big moves right now. They're not going to go 7 months to 15 months of just absolutely sacrificing no title fights on these cards. They're not going to happen. And I don't know about you guys. I'm already sick enough of the Apex that I don't even want to see any more cards from there. So like I just don't think it's feasible, guys. I really don't. And even with UFC 300, I think there was 3 fights that could have really, made this card pop like there was promised. But they're not, like we said, the Conor McGregor fight, they've already announced it's not going to happen. Clearly, John Jones, Stipe, or John Jones, Aspinall would have been absolutely massive. But John Jones is hurt, clearly. And I think the only other one would be, Francis Ngannou coming back? And that's not even possible with the way that the UFC's, working out. So I just think it's truly doomed from the start. And I don't know if there's an actual possibility of a greatest card of all time or the greatest card of a lifetime. Like, Because truly, when it comes to pay-per-view buys, and that's when it comes to like your average fan, just people that are just casuals, as some people call them. They're only going to come watch the Conor McGregors. I don't even know who else. Sugar Sean's not going to sell that much, unless it's a stack card. Aaliyah Tapira, yeah, sure, he could sell in, Spain and England and all this stuff over there. Europe, not England, but Europe, you know what I'm saying over there. I just don't think it's happening. Ian Gary's not, Izzy's not. Francis probably could. I think that would blow the door off, but they're not going to bring him back. Like Tom Aspinall's not quite there yet. I don't know. I just don't think it's possible for these guys. If it really came down to blowing the doors off the whole building and blowing people's minds and everything, they'd have to pull something out of their ass and get Habib to come out of retirement. They'd have to get GSP to come back still. And I don't even know if GSP's still in the shape and whatnot I know he's in shape, but I'm saying at his age and everything, I don't know if he's still the power that everybody would want him to be. It'd have to be Leon versus him or Hamzat or something. They'd have to really, really make it big. But even then, that's just one fight. That is all it is. So I truly don't know if they could stack a card that much for us fans to be 100% on board, and we'll never be 100% on board. We're human beings. None of us are all the same. So like to even get 80% of us all on board for one major card, to be able to call it the card of our lifetime, and to be up there for something that we'll always remember. Maybe we talked about like David versus Goliath type things, or I'll never forget when Mike Tyson fought when he fought Holyfield, or this and that, or when the rise of Muhammad Ali or anything like that, or when Anderson Silva was fighting. Like even those guys, they couldn't have made the card of a lifetime. So I don't know. I just think it's one of those things that's out there. It's going to be folklore for the rest of our life. The UFC's got a great thing going on right now. As a fan, I'm personally going to watch every single card that they do. They have a great thing right now. Yes, like I said, I wish they'd get out of Apex and start going to bigger arenas. Like when I went to UFC Kansas City last year to watch, literally a year ago in April, to watch Max Holloway fight. The environment was amazing. Just to be at the T-Mobile Center there was phenomenal. Like they should do that. We all deserve that as fans, to be there at every single fight card. So outside of the Apex arena, I mean, they got a great thing going. What, 2 title fights a night? When they have 3 title fights in one night, we're all freaking shook about it. So like at the end of the day, man, I just think that they're just gonna mess with what they got going on. And like I said, to sacrifice 7 to 15 months, I just don't think they could. Maybe back when they could have brought Fedor to fight Brock, I think that could have broke the gate. Like, I'm just sitting here really trying to think, like, how could they get a card to get 3 million views, 4 million views, 5 million views? Like, Conor McGregor's not getting that right now. I just don't know if there's a single fight out there. John Jones versus Francis, like, if John Jones somehow just runs through Tom Aspinall and then Francis beats, good old, like if John Jones even fights Tom Aspinall, but then say this happens and then Francis goes out and beats Anthony Joshua, and we're sitting there like, holy shit, the UFC does a deal with them. John Jones versus Francis, and then add Conor on that card, which Conor I don't think's willing to be a co-main event. Like, I'm just saying, that right then and there, just the 2 fights alone could make it a $3 million, pay-per-view, or 3 million pay-per-view buys and stuff. But other than that, guys, I just don't think the UFC could do anything for us like that. I just think it just sucked from the jump when Dana White came out here and just promised us sweet nothings. It's going to happen. We're going to get, we have imaginations that love to build up, and I just don't think that we'll ever see one. So you guys let me know. Clearly, the 11 title fights in one night is going to be almost impossible to do. If they could somehow do something to get Habib back and he fights Conor or something again, or some crazy comeback fight, that I could see it, Habib versus GSP could be wild. Like I could see stuff like that, but if we're being honest, none of this is happening. We're not going to see it. So when it comes to realistic options, I don't know, man. And I'm not even mad at the Alex Pereira Jamal Hill fight. I actually kind of feel bad for Jamal Hill, for being honest, because I think they're rushing him a little too early, but still, at the end of the day, I mean, I would have been happy with the Max Holloway Justin Gaethje fight. Like I said, I'd have been happy with how the card's looking now. It's phenomenal. But look at UFC 299. It is arguably a better card because it's not hyped up. Look at UFC 298. Was a phenomenal card because it wasn't as hyped up as UFC 300 is. And even with UFC 200, it barely sold 1 million pay-per-view buys. But to be fair, the main fight of John Jones DC, clearly we all know what happened there. Got canceled last second, so we got stuck with Amanda Nunes, Miesha Tate. So, like, clearly, UFC 200 is probably not going to sell like crazy, but, with UFC 300, it just lacks that one big fight. And as a fan, I don't really care that much, but I just know with Dana White promising everybody sweet nothings, this is what was going to happen. So, you guys let me know what y'all think. If there is a card out there the UFC could actually put together that would blow the doors off this thing and remind us as the greatest card of all time. But then again, even on paper, it might be the greatest. But when it comes down to the fight night, we need the guys to actually, the ladies and men, to come up and actually perform. And that's going to be the toughest part, to get all 11 fights or all 15 fights on a card or whatever they do, 10 fights, 8 fights, 9 fights, depending on how big the card is. It's tough to do, man. So it's always your boy Steven Moustaris. And let's go, baby. Let's go.